research since 1993. He owns and practices out of Charlottesville, neurology and sleep medicine, and has a consulting company. He has worked with over 30 professional sports teams, and his current research is in athletic performance and sleep, and the link between that. And he is not only going to teach you guys some really valuable information so you can thrive in life and be the best version of yourself if you get the right sleep, but he's already taught me a million really cool facts that are connected to sleep. So we're excited to have him here, and let's just give him a round of applause.
Thank you so much. Was I too loud? Thanks for coming. It's just such a beautiful school you're at, and this is a beautiful environment. I'm excited to get to talk to you all again. I apologize ahead of time if you were in one of the classes earlier. I designed this to be different from the talk from before. So there might be thank God. I believe in science. I believe in masks, but after a while, it's a lie. So that feels so good. So I'm excited to talk to you guys a little bit more about sleep. So we'll go about 45 minutes here. I'd be happy to answer questions at the end, and I'll stay as long as anybody has questions. So I put on here rethinking sleep. I like this picture of the young woman sleeping with 20 different phones on top of her bed. And I've already heard from students and from faculty about the technology rules for when you go to bed at night and the lights are out and the internet dies, so we can talk a little bit about that too. So I do work with some sports teams. Unfortunately, my Dodgers and my Red Sox just lost to the Astros and the Braves, so I will not be winning any World Series this year. But we've had some success before. The Dodgers won it last year, which was exciting. I won 3 with the Giants. The Indians went to the World Series. And so, I think paying attention to sleep matters. It's not because of that, but when you really are a dedicated athlete and you're trying to be successful, whatever you do, I think sleep is always going to play a big role in that. I'm not a huge sports fan. I don't really care that much about athletes, but I do think that it's interesting that when you get an athlete to sleep better or reconsider her relationship with sleep, it's fun to measure and watch how their productivity and their improvement changes. And so that's really what interests me the most. So I wasn't much older than you when I started in sleep. I was a high school senior in Virginia, and I graduated and went to the University of Virginia and thought I wanted to be a doctor, but didn't really know anything about that. So I talked to this guy named Rolf Benzinger, who was my biology advisor, and he said, if you want to be a doctor, you should do some research. So I was looking through all the books about research, and it looked just terribly boring. I said, oh God, this is so boring. I turned the page, it was something about sleep and something about pigs, and I thought, that sounds kind of cool. And so we were doing sleep studies on these little pigs. This was a regular pig. Most of what I used were these pigs called Yucatan micro pigs. And so we did little sleep studies on them at night. So I always smelled like a barn. The woman who actually took this picture, I was dating at the time. I'm married to now, which was kind of fun. And so we had to figure out how to get these pigs to wear a mask at night. So we had to measure their breathing. They're super smart. I don't know how many of you have experience with pigs, but they're not dumb creatures. They're really intelligent. And they had ways of getting out of the mask. And so I actually designed a little mask and a little compartment at the end of it that I put in tortilla chips and lard. And then suddenly the pig couldn't get enough of the mask, and it was in there all the time. So it was just constantly trying to figure things like that out. So I spent my 4 years at the University of Virginia doing that, and got into medical school down at Emory University, and got to be down at Emory doing a sleep study. So this little device right here is what we used to do sleep studies on. What you can't see down here at the bottom is a piece of paper with little ink pens going like this, and all through the night they would draw the lines in the brain activity. And my job was to make sure the paper folded itself nicely and didn't run out of ink. And so all this information right here, all this computer technology, you can fit in a watch easily now. So it's amazing to see the technology leaps that have occurred in terms of monitoring sleep. And I think it's interesting that we all have the capacity to do that with an Apple Watch or something that's slid under our mattress or even our phone. So we can learn more about our sleep now than we ever could at that time. So I never really left the field of sleep. I practice like in Charlottesville, Virginia. It's down in the great Commonwealth, and I see adults and kids who have sleep problems, and that's it. It's my whole practice. can't fall asleep, can't stay asleep, can't wake up in the morning, come see me and we'll figure it out. What I love about sleep is that in addition to seeing patients, and in addition to working with athletes, sleep's fun. People love to talk about sleep. And so I did a series where I would write articles about sleeping in weird places. And this is me sleeping in an ice cave one night, which was a lot of fun. This is a place called Seneca Rocks, West Virginia. And so for about a year and a half, I worked on trying to convince mountain climbers to help me climb a mountain and then sleep on a portal ledge. So that's me in Seneca Rocks. The guy who got me up there went back down and climbed another mountain to make this video. So he left me overnight to sleep there. So I wanted to write how fear affects our sleep. And I just finished doing the same thing a couple of years later. We're actually making a television show about it now. So I went to Estes Park, Colorado. So that's me in the Rocky Mountains. And this is Sasha DeJulian. She's probably one of the, if not the, most accomplished and famous female mountain climbers in the world today. So she helped me climb this mountain, and you can see those were our beds for the night up there. So that's Sasha up there belaying me. That's a film crew, a cameraman. And so that's Sasha's bed, and that was my bed last night. So she's a fun person to follow, because she does a lot with her platform, and is a really cool person. So sleep's interesting. It's a fun thing to talk about. We all do it. We've all got interesting stories of bizarre things we did in hotel rooms at some point. Locked yourself out, sleepwalking, and couldn't get back in. Weird dreams that you've had. I still have nightmares about medical school all the time. So it's a common language. You know, we all have shared sleep experiences, which is a lot of fun. I have no commercial relationship with anything in my talk. I'm not trying to sell you anything, although I do like to disclose that I do have 2 books. One's called The Sleep Solution. The other is called The Rested Child. If you're interested in buying a copy, I've got some here. I'll be happy to sign it for you. Christmas is around the corner. Your parents are terrible sleepers. I'll leave it at that. So I wanted to make this less scientific. We talked sort of more about science in the classes today. And I just kind of wanted to talk about our own relationships to sleep, because we all have them. And I always like to think about individuals being good sleepers and bad sleepers. In my new book, I wrote a whole chapter about sleep identity. Because I love when I meet people. Oh, Chris, I'm a great sleeper. My husband, he's a terrible sleeper. My favorite thing is when I meet parents. And they got 2 little kids, a little 8-year-old playing Legos over here, a little 10-year-old drawing a picture of something over here. And I love when the parent will say, oh, Susie, she's a great sleeper. She's the light of our lives. Keith over here is a terrible sleeper. You know, he is the worst. And I love that because Keith has got ears that work. He's listening to everything that's being said, right? And I love the idea like, Susie, she's a good student. She makes good grades. Keith over there, he's dumb as dirt. I don't know where he is. But you would never say that about a child, right in front of them. But parents say that all the time. And so as somebody who sees adults and kids in my clinic, what I find really interesting is when a 38-year-old comes into my clinic and says, oh, Chris, I've always been a bad sleeper. What does that mean? How do you define good and bad sleep? Are these some of the terms that you use when you think about sleep? God, it's so frustrating to me. I get in bed, I can't fall asleep. My roommate over there from Connecticut, out cold every night. Immediately snoring. I sit there and struggle. I can't shut my mind off at night. I'm so angry. He falls asleep there. Jonathan is asleep for his head hits the pillow every night. I hate Jonathan. So yeah, people like that. They get really upset about that. They're jealous of people. They're angry. They're demoralized. They're panicked. Oh my God, I got big lactose in the morning. Okay, if I fall asleep right now, I can get 7 hours. Great, it's already down, we're down to 6:58. This is great. Now, even if I fell asleep right now, I can get no more than 6 hours of sleep. Like, this is the math. It's like, I call it sleep math. You start doing, trying to figure out what sleep you can get. I see a lot of people nodding their head. So, are any of these words that you use in the F word? That's the F word in sleep clinics, not the F word. That word, fear. You fear sleep. You fear not being able to sleep. Because the other F word is function. You've got to sleep because I got to be able to function the next day, right? So are these things that are entering into your life? So how do we judge sleep? You're a good sleeper. There's a good sleeper right there. She's almost asleep as we speak. A bad sleeper over here. And by the way, if you want to take a nap while I talk, please go right ahead. There's a great researcher, Bill DeMint, who just recently passed away, kind of the godfather of sleep in this country. He was a professor at Stanford. And he taught the most popular class at Stanford, which was a class on sleep. People would kill each other trying to get into this class because it was so good. He was such an amazing lecturer. And he encouraged people to fall asleep. And if you fell asleep in class and woke up and had a dream, your job was to raise your hand and describe the dream you had during class to the rest of the class. I mean, it was amazing. He got these cool t-shirts with his face on them, and it was just awesome guy. Bill DeMint, he wrote a book called The Promise of Sleep, if you ever want an interesting read about sleep. So how do we determine if we're a good sleeper or a bad sleeper? Well, for a lot of people, it's how long it takes them to fall asleep. Oh, he's a good sleeper because he gets in bed and falls asleep immediately. She's a bad sleeper because it can take her 20, 30, sometimes even 40 minutes to fall asleep, right? So how do we determine if you're a good eater or a bad eater? I've never heard anybody say, well, she's a good eater. She can eat her dinner in about 3 minutes. He's a bad eater. It might take him 20, 30 minutes. Sometimes he doesn't even finish his sandwich. He's a bad eater. We would never say that. Speed with which we do it, is that a good metric for how good of sleep we are? I don't know. How many times you wake up during the night? I work with about, 10 NBA teams. Let me tell you something they're very good at. Waking up to go to the bathroom. You know why? Because they aggressively hydrate during the day. In fact, when you go into the bathroom in these facilities, they're all state-of-the-art. Like, and you're sitting there doing your thing, it looks at the color of your urine. It will give you suggestions about how you might want to live the next hour of your life. Like, go drink some Gatorade because your urine is way too yellow. Like, so it's kind of weird. Like, I just want a little privacy. I don't want to think about it too much when I go to the bathroom. I'm like suddenly analyzing my chemistry of my urine. So how often do you wake up? They wake up a lot during the night because they have to pee. But they go right back to bed. Is that bad? Is that okay? How many times does the average individual wake up during the night? 30. So if we had a camera in our bedrooms and we were watching you sleep, he would probably wake up 30 times. And sometimes he'd wake up and look at his hand and go right back to sleep. You're like, what'd you do last night? Nothing. Did you wake up? Nope. I'm seeing you right here. You're like looking at your hand in a weird way. What are you doing there? I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember doing that. It's really disturbing to me. Because our memory of what we do at night is not great. There was a doctor who I worked with, these old, the greatest thing about medical school is old doctors, because they don't care anymore. They just tell you what's going on. Like, and I remember one kind of uptight parent, and he just walked in and said, never watch your children sleep. It's great, because they do weird things at night. Like, they get up and do stuff, and they go right back to sleep, no memory of it. And it's okay. You wake up and you're not. How do you feel during the day? So those 3 things up there, if you're asking me, hey Chris, what do you think is the best indicator of good sleep? I'd say it's number 3. How do you feel? I was talking to somebody, one of your classmates today, and he said, I'm worried about a friend of mine because my friend falls asleep a lot in class. I'm worried. Maybe he's not getting enough sleep. To me, that's a good indicator of not getting enough sleep. You can't stay awake during a physics class, right? Man, physics is fun. You got little cars with balloons on them, and you blow them up, and they ride across, and you're studying all these forces. Like, it's kind of hard to it's hard to fall asleep in physics class. But this guy's doing it. So that might be a better indicator than how long it takes him to fall asleep. But that guy probably falls asleep immediately. Maybe that's not a great indicator. So here's the big news. If you don't remember anything about what I say today, here's something I think is important. There is no such thing as can't sleep. And we say it all of the time. Oh, God, I can't sleep. These pills don't work for me. Your parents probably talk about it all the time. Your parents love talking about they can't sleep. Oh, I just can't sleep. I'm so worried about what Rachel Maddow says, I cannot sleep. That's what my in-laws always say. They're freaked out. Don't watch Rachel Maddow. It's easy, right? Watch Walking Dead. I don't know. So there's no such thing as the ability to sleep. If you're human, you're going to spend about 6 hours a night, minimum, sleeping for every 24 of your life, and there's not a thing you can do about it. It's inescapable. So when somebody says to me, I had a person came to me and said, I spent 6 months in Germany, I didn't sleep any when I was there. I said, what do you mean when you say you didn't sleep? And she said, do I stutter? Oh, okay. No, a guy was going to be that kind of reason. So she thought for 6 months, while living in Germany, she got in bed, stared at the ceiling for 8 hours, and got out of bed. That's what she thought. Now, the world record for sleep deprivation is 11 days. A guy named Randy Gardner out in California did an experiment at Stanford. They kept him awake for 11 days. But if you talk to Bill DeMint, the guy who taught that class at Stanford, he was the one running the experiment. He said, oh, it's a shame. He said Randy did not stay awake for 11 days. I said he would be sitting there playing pinball and would fall asleep. Like we couldn't stop it. It was like a runaway train. So nobody in here is in danger of not being able to fall asleep. So that's an important thing. And what I love about it is nobody seems to get that message. Here's an article from NPR. Can't sleep? Neither can 60 million Americans. Wow, 60 million Americans. A little zombie army of people who just can't sleep, just walking the earth, unable to sleep, right? And what's crazy is a few months later, Forbes magazine said, wow, 70 million Americans can't sleep. Oh God, 10 more million Americans have joined the herd of people just walking around not being able to sleep. Here's the New Yorker, why can't we fall asleep? So we've just normalized this phrase, can't sleep, right? And it's terrifying because I bet I can ask each of you, what's something bad that happens when you don't sleep? Heart disease, stroke, bad performance on your math test, terrible performance in your basketball game, cosmetically, we age faster, we die earlier, I mean on and on and on. So, wow, man, if you're somebody who can't sleep, you better get your act together, you're going to die, right? And that's kind of the message we need. So it's an interesting competing narrative that we have going on. So how do we figure out if somebody's a good sleeper? Well, we talk about something called sleep efficiency. How much time do you spend in bed? And how much time do you sleep? So if you're somebody who spends 10 hours in bed, and of the 10 hours you're in bed, you sleep 9 hours, you're 90% efficient. We think about 85 to 90% being perfect. Not 99%. That's the person who, oh my gosh, he gets in bed, he's asleep immediately, and is literally out cold until you wake him up. Well, that high efficiency, up in the upper 90s, might be an indication of actually sleep deprivation. If you take somebody and withhold sleep for a period of time, they'll explode with high efficiency. So we don't necessarily want that. But we also don't want somebody spending 13 hours in bed and only sleeping 8, right? So it's a math equation. And when you look at somebody's sleep, let's say this is my sleep. Here's the sleep. 9 hours in bed, 10 hours in bed, 6 to 9 hours, that's 90% efficient. So what if I spend 15 hours in bed trying to sleep 9 hours? It's still the same amount of sleep. But the amount of dead time, the amount of wasted time, inefficient time is way up, right? And so it's really interesting that if there's no such thing as an inability to sleep, when somebody says they can't sleep, what are they talking about? They're generally talking about sleep. It's very inefficient. And if you're living in a world where 7 is better than 6, well then 8 must be better than 7. And you know what's better than 8? 9. And it's better than 9, 10. You get where I'm going, right? So I've got patients who literally spend over half their life in bed trying to sleep. Y'all grandparents, they're great at that. You got nothing else to do, right? I'm living down here in Fort Myers, and all the kids are gone. I don't work anymore, and I don't like to surf. So I just, when the news is over at 7, I go to bed. So that inefficiency becomes a real problem. And so when we think about sleep, what do we want? We want somebody whose sleep is not only efficient. Look how efficient this person's sleep is. Ooh, they get in bed, 5 minutes later they're asleep, and ooh, they sleep right through the night, wake up in the morning and feel great. And then the next day, same thing happens. Night after night after night, just great sleep all over the place. Let's look at this poor guy right here. He's a bad sleeper. That kid's been a bad sleeper since he was 5 years old. He's the worst. Devil's dirt, too. So look at him right here. Gets in bed, sleeps, and wakes up, and can't sleep, and needs a cup of water, and thinks about stuff, and falls back to sleep again, wakes up, and goes to the bathroom, and then the next night's totally different. I mean, every night's a different exploration of bad sleep. So you can add to our list of things that we use to judge sleep. How long does it take you to fall asleep? How many times do you wake up? How do you feel? How efficient is your sleep? How predictable is your sleep? That's a big one. If you ask me, Chris, how do you sleep? What do you think is going to happen? I think I'm going to go to bed tonight and sleep just fine. I usually do. It's pretty predictable, right? I don't have a lot of fear about that. But if your sleep is not good, or often is not good, you approach every night with a sense of, oh, I hope it's good because I got a big day tomorrow. I don't want to have a bad night's sleep. So that fear, that F word starts creeping in the picture. So what is insomnia? I bet if I asked 100 people, hey, you know what insomnia is? They'll say, yeah, it's when a person can't sleep. There's that phrase again, right? No, that's not what insomnia is. What is insomnia? Insomnia is two things. Number one, it's a person whose sleep
timing or quality or some aspect of their sleep is not matching with their expectation. My expectation is I will go to bed tonight at 9 o'clock, fall asleep in 5 minutes, and not wake up till my alarm clock goes off at 7. There's my expectation. It'll either happen or it won't. When it doesn't happen, what's the consequence? I meet somebody at a dinner party. Hey, what do you do? I'm a pilot. What do you do? I'm a sleep doctor. Ooh, sleep doctor. Oh, it's interesting. Whenever I go to bed at night, I take me 2 hours to fall asleep. My first question to that person is, how do you feel about that? Oh, I don't care. I love it. I love being in bed awake. Personally, I do. I like being in bed awake. My kids aren't taking money out of my wallet and scratching up my car. I don't know where that big scratch came from, Dad. Okay, well, let's figure it out. I haven't driven that car in a week. You've taken it to school every day for a week. I've got to guess where the scratch came from. You know, like that's where I live that's my life right there, right? But at night, I'm just in bed, it's quiet, nobody's talking to me, nobody's calling or emailing me. I love it. I love being in bed at night. But some people don't, and that's okay. So the first question is, you're in bed, it takes you 2 hours to fall asleep. How do you feel about it? I don't like that. Because that's the second part of the definition. Insomnia is the person who sleeps, expectation is not happening, and there's a negative response to it. I hate it. It is a nightmare. You want to do something fun? Get your phone when you have access to it. Look up my first book, the one that's called The Sleep Solution, the older one. And you can go on Amazon and find it, and then you can go on to the reviews. So when you buy something, you get the reviews. Or my favorite story is one time I got a 1-star review, and my kids were really interested in that for a while. Like, oh my God, they've got a 1-star review in your book. It's terrible. I'm like, oh, I said, some people just put 1-star reviews for everything. And they were like, not this guy. He put 5 stars for jockstrap. It's like, all right, fair enough. You're making me feel sad. But if you read the 1-star reviews, you will read a tour de force of negative emotional responses. This doctor has no idea what he's talking about. In fact, I'm not sure he's a real doctor. Because he has no idea the nightmare that is insomnia. It's crazy, cruel, it's deep-fried brains. That's what one person said. Really? Okay. We can agree to disagree. So how do you feel when you get in bed and your sleep doesn't work out the way you want it? No big deal or big deal? Melatonin gummy bears. I love melatonin gummy bears. What a lie. Anyway, all right, moving on. So sleep and fear. So myth number 2, insomnia is sleep deprivation. So we talk about that a lot. It's like, oh, sleep deprivation. We are a sleep-deprived country, and we are suffering for it. We've had discussions about you guys today. Are you all getting enough sleep? Or the pressures of a school like this, it doesn't add up in terms of getting somebody the right amount of sleep. I don't know. These are interesting questions, all right? So sleep deprivation and insomnia are 2 different things. In fact, they're opposites. They're not the same. And it's amazing how often the media will get that wrong. They'll say, we are a sleep-deprived country. We've got people working 2 jobs and driving Ubers all night long, and they are sleep-deprived. Yes, they are. But a sleep-deprived person, like a food-deprived person, like a water-deprived person, like an air-deprived person, seeks what they are deprived of. And the more deprived they are of it, the stronger they seek it. Do you remember the story about the person lost in the woods with no food? They stumbled across an all-you-can-eat buffet, and they walked in and said, I can't find anything good to eat. No, that's not how starvation works. That's not how sleep deprivation works either. Sleep deprivation is, I fall asleep all over the place. When I was in medical school, when you're in surgery, you do your surgery rotation, you stand there as a medical student with a retractor, and you just hold it for hours. So it basically opens up the patient. So you've got medical student 1 right here, and medical student 2 right here, and you open it up and you hold it for the surgeon as she repairs the intestines or whatever. And if you're lucky, she'll make you stitch up the incision and you feel like a god. It's the best, I gotta stitch it up or whatever. But until that time, you just stand there for hours holding that thing open. And I remember one time doing it, and my buddy was across from me, and you're not allowed to talk in this surgeon's office. So we just looked at each other. And I could see my friend going like this. I was like, I was trying to like silently communicate with him. And all of a sudden, I can't describe to you the sound the human head makes when it enters in somebody's abdomen. But I imagine by your response, you just imagine it. Yes, it sounds just like that. And he stood up immediately, just kind of like covered in whatever. And I have never seen a surgeon go that crazy. I will ruin you. You will never go. And he's screaming. I'm still like, do I still hold this? And do I let go now? I don't know what to do. So to me, I always think about that because that's what sleep deprivation is. You think you have control over sleep? No, you don't. Sleep has control over you. Your body wants sleep. It's going to get it. Whether you're driving down the road in the car, whether you're holding that protractor, your body is angry and jealous when it's not getting enough sleep. And it will absolutely take control of that away from you and get what it needs. So we should never be worried about, oh, what do I need to do to get sleep? I mean, melatonin gummy bears, I think. Don't worry about it. Your brain's got that under control. As long as factors in your life are keeping you from getting it, like that poor medical student. Oh, sorry. So this was the woman who said I hadn't slept in 6 months. Blue equals sleep. The other thing we have to keep in mind with sleep is that our perceptions of sleep are very different from reality. When I was a kid on Christmas Eve, I'd wake up every Christmas and be like, oh great, I screwed up Christmas. Why? Well, I couldn't fall asleep last night. I was so excited Santa comes and I didn't hear anything. And I know Santa doesn't come if you don't fall asleep. You walk in like, oh my gosh, presents everywhere. How'd that happen? He's magic. So my perception was, okay, fall asleep, your Santa won't come. Fall asleep, or you go to ruin Christmas for the whole thing. Fall asleep, okay, and fall asleep. Fall asleep, okay, come on. Oh my God, I was like in tears. I was so anxious about trying to fall asleep that if you had asked my parents, they'd go, oh, Chris, you fell asleep for like 20 minutes. You were asleep all night. Like we checked on you before we started putting the toys together or whatever you did. That was about ruining something for somebody. So this is a person with severe insomnia, in that all of this blue is sleep, yet she did not feel that. Right? So one of the things that's hard about sleep is what you tell me may or may not be the truth, which is why the Aura Ring or the Withings band or the iWatch or the device under your mat is so cool now. Because now we have an independent arbiter. I say you sleep, you say you don't. Let's see what the watch says. 7 hours and 22 minutes, I think you sleep. So for some people who feel like they're not getting enough sleep, these things can be fantastic in terms of helping them solve that. Make sure we're... So when we talk about fear, we were talking about those Amazon reviews, you know, he's terrible, his nightmare, and whatever. If somebody said, Chris, what's your nightmare? This is my nightmare. There's a scene from Silence of the Lambs, this poor woman's in a hole. Do you ever seen this movie? It's terrible. I hate even looking at it. It's terrible. That's my nightmare right there. I really like to think about it. Let me show you what, this is not my nightmare. You're in a climate-controlled bedroom at 68 degrees, the person you love is sitting next to you, you have food in the pantry, you're awake. I don't consider that a nightmare. Something to be fearful of. It's just, you're awake. We're all awake right now. We're having a perfectly lovely time, right? So if fear is a big part of your relationship with sleep, we want to stop that. And one way you can do it is understand that sleep is a skill that you can train. Does anybody here meditate? Somebody said that they were doing yoga classes here. Anybody good at meditation? Are you good at meditation? Come on. Yeah, come on. So one of my favorite products, and I'll send the school, and I'll send one to your school, and you can keep it in the wellness department. Let's start them up. I want you to sit right here. So what this is called Muse. Now this is the old Muse this guy's wearing right here. There's a new one that's a headband. So it's you. Okay, well, there you go. So we're Charlottesville people. So anyway, this was all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on you so you can sit back and relax, which I love because everybody's watching. So I'm really curious about this. So I'm going to put this on your head. And what this is, it's going to measure her brain activity. So as we talk, she's going to have her brain activity measured. So I should have picked somebody who was bald. But so this needs to touch your skin because it's going to measure your EEG. So just try to get this little part of the band touching the top part of the skin of your ear. So what's going to happen is I'm going to turn it on, and it's going to start a little 2-minute countdown. And while she's doing it, it's going to measure her brain activity. Yeah, hold on a second. So is it on there? So I'm going to tell you 2 seconds. Put these on over top. All right. So what's going to happen is if it's connected, all these are going to sit back and relax.
So it's not touching on your ears. Just see if you can push that down further onto your ear. Really onto your ear. Okay, it's about to happen. So now it's the one ear on the other side. Yeah, so what it has to do is it has to connect. I'm going to take this part. This part. And so what it's going to do is it'll measure her brain activity. And then, let's see what happens. You might need to, I'm so sorry. Yep. In the interest of time, I will keep it afterwards because I want to record it because you were so, here's some little blue block classes for you. So I'm going to show you what would have happened. So I was curious to try it. So yeah, do you want to come on and try it? So what's going to happen? Nice to meet you. That needs to be touching your forehead, and then this little part right on the top of your, right there, like that part of your ear. Much easier. All right, so now that works. What's going to happen is, so it's going to give you some instructions, okay? You're going to listen to it here. And I'll keep an eye on that. So just relax. Sit back. There you go. Perfect. So it's going to start giving you some instructions. Is it talking? Can you hear it? So it's giving us some instructions right now. And in a minute it'll start, and he'll start to hear the sound of the ocean. If he can relax his mind, calm his mind, he can make the sound of the ocean or the rain go away. If his mind is active or upset, or he starts thinking about his girlfriend, it starts going crazy, raining all over the place. So what it will do in real time is allow him to control the volume based upon his ability to control his own thoughts. And when he's done, he'll get a little graph like this. So from 0 to 2, 3, this is 3 minutes. You can see this individual's brain activity. And you want it down here in the red. This was actually a middle infielder from the San Francisco Giants. He gave it a try. And when he was done, he said, "How did I do?" I said, "You were 10% calm." He said, "How well did you do the first time you tried?" I said, "I was 28% calm." He got real competitive. And so he stole my device and my phone and left. That was at 10 o'clock in the morning. He came back at 2 in the afternoon and slammed it down in front of me and said, "Beat that score, 75%. So in 4 hours, he had learned what he needed to do to turn his device down. So, are you ready? So we're going to start it right now. So right now, he's listening to the sound of the ocean, and he's trying to control his thoughts and relax, despite the fact that everybody is watching him trying to do it, right? So at the end, we'll see how he does in a minute. So this is the best one that I've ever seen. This was a linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens. The only reason he had this spike was because guys kept coming into the room where he was at, trying to figure out what was going on. And when he was done, he was something like 94% calm. I said, "How'd you do that?" He said, "I don't know," he goes, "but I've done meditation since I was a kid." So it's a really interesting thing. If you're a meditator, you probably don't need it. If you've never really done meditation before, like what I used to do, I'm like, we're sitting there and like looking around at people and trying to figure out, am I doing this right? I don't know what I'm doing. This thing kind of teaches you how to shut your mind and calm your mind at night. So when you go to bed at night, if you're somebody who just can't settle down at night, it's a skill that you can learn. This can teach you how to do it. And even if you don't fall asleep, like if every day you've got a little break in the middle of your day, if you found a little empty, like an auditorium like this and snuck in here during the day, it was quiet, kind of dark, sat in one of these chairs, and kind of meditated for 15 minutes, even if you don't fall asleep, it's remarkably restorative to your body. In fact, it's a requirement for all my athletes. Every day you gotta find 15 minutes to rest. I don't care if you sleep. If you fall asleep, that's fine. But don't judge success or failure of you being quiet by whether you become unconscious and sleep or not. See how I'm doing? 25 seconds left. So my son, he's a swimmer at Navy. He used to sit out during a meet. About 20 minutes before he'd swim, he'd put it on just to get into the right mindset before he would get up on the blocks. So he really kind of hyper-focus on what he needed to do. And he would always do it when he went to bed at night too. So it kind of teaches you how to control your thoughts. You get into a calculus exam, the first question right off the bat is terrible. Like you don't even know how to start the problem. Are you somebody who can panics and it ruins the rest of the test? Or are you somebody who can like, okay, I have no idea how to do this problem. I'm going to move on to the second problem and do my best with it. I mean, can you control those thoughts? Let's see how we do. You done? All right. How'd you feel?
I felt all right. I felt like
Okay. He said I had a hard time focusing. So that's pretty common when people first use it. So what you can see, are these big waves here. So he has really big waves right here, but about midway through, you can tell he's starting to figure it out, and they really started to come down. So let's see what your score was. Save it, and we go to step in history. So, what is that number right there? 56%. I'll send some glasses for you too. So that was great. So I'm really impressed by that. So I have a lot of follow-up questions. Like somebody would come out of the group, stand in front of all his peers, and be 56% calm right off the bat, might tell me something about him, his demeanor towards things, his ability to sleep, etc. So we'll move past it. So anyway, the military made a pair of glasses that have to do the same thing. So instead of having this weird headband to carry around, as long as you have your sunglasses, you just tap on the side of them, they started measuring your brain activity, so you can just wear sunglasses and do whatever you want to do. So I think we're at time, I feel like.
Well, some people might have to leave to change for...
Yeah, if anybody has to leave, please just stand up and leave. It's not that big a deal. I think this might be a good time. I just had a few more slides about some things, the way sleep works, but I think it'd be better to just answer questions that people have. And thank you. Hey, I like your talk. It's great.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The question is sleepwalking always connected to stress? So sleepwalking is, the technical word is somnambulism, which means you're walking in your sleep, is generally a situation that arises out of an abnormal awakening from deep sleep. Hope you can see the lines there, sorry, that slide. So deep sleep usually happens in the first part of our night. So if we awaken suddenly out of deep sleep, that's when people generally sleep talk, sleep walk, sleep eat, or sometimes even do other kind of unusual behaviors. It's also when night terrors happen. Somebody wakes up and starts screaming, and the next day has no recollection of it. Versus people who awaken out of dream sleep, which is the little yellow boxes, and I'm sorry, there's a line there you can't see. That's generally a nightmare. Oh my God, I woke up and there was a man underneath my bed and he was trying
to grab me, and he kept trying to give me skills. It was crazy. Like, that was a weird dream. Like, I guess things because I was thinking about skills yesterday. Like, you have a recollection of it, right? So generally, sleepwalking happens during deep sleep because during REM sleep, we're paralyzed. We can't move. Which is why sometimes when people wake up and have sleep paralysis, they awaken out of dream sleep before the paralysis fully goes away. So you're kind of conscious sitting there but can't move. So some of the risk factors for having sleepwalking are genetic, like it runs in your family, or fragmented sleep. You are staying up late studying for exams, or you're a shift worker who works 7A to 7P for a while, and then you switch over and do night shift work from 7P to 7A. So anything that kind of disrupts our sleep can lead to more episodes of sleepwalking. So sleepwalking is one of those things that if you do it like once a year, it's kind of considered to be sort of a normal variant. If you're somebody who sleepwalks a lot, or occasionally wets the bed, or you talk in your sleep all the time, it may be because there's something going on with your sleep that's affecting the quality of the sleep and leading you to wake up. So, anyway, anybody have a roommate that sleepwalks or sleep talks?
I sleepwalk.
Sleep talk, yeah. My youngest son does too. It's really interesting. It almost like sounds like speaking in tongues sometimes, and really dramatic. Everybody wants to sleep in the hotel room. I wanted to put this up here really quickly, just because we talked a little bit about this in class, and I think it's important, because this is the age group that you guys are in where these things start to happen. Individuals who are sort of struck down suddenly by a lot of sleepiness or fatigue, where it just, it can be related to having COVID or no real clear precipitant. I just have a lot of struggles getting up in the morning. I'm always tired. I can sleep 6 hours. I can sleep 16 hours. I never feel rested the next day. This is a very difficult thing to deal with within the medical community as a whole, because we don't do well with that. 25% of doctors have never gotten any education about sleep, and you're very likely just to be labeled as depressed, given an antidepressant, and patted on the head. There's nothing wrong with being depressed. Lots of people are depressed. There is something wrong with being diagnosed as being depressed when you have nothing wrong with you in terms of being depressed. There's something wrong with your sleep. So, young woman says, I just cannot stay awake. The last 3 years I've been depressed. I come home from school, I go right to sleep, I take a 3-hour nap, I wake up, try to do some homework, and then I go right back to bed again, and all I want to do is sleep. I bought concert tickets, and when the concert came around, I gave them to a friend because I was just too tired to do it. I'm withdrawn from the things I used to do. I used to like to play club soccer. I've stopped doing that because all I really want to do is sleep. That sounds like somebody who's very depressed. And I can see why a doctor would see that person and say, oh, you're just depressed. You miss your mom and dad. You're kind of far from home. It's okay. So when you look at the amount of sleep a person your old age needs, it's usually somewhere between 8 to 10 hours. There are extreme cases of some people only need 7, some people require 11. All of those are fine. Again, that's that bell curve distribution. So the first question to ask that person who's so sleepy all the time, how much sleep are you getting? Oh, I don't know, 13 hours a day. I'll sleep easily 16 on the weekend if people will let me. I'm at home. All I really do is sleep. My mom's really worried about me. So the first question is that individual getting the right amount of sleep, or is that person only getting like 3 or 4 hours sleep? Okay, well that explains it, right? Because what we're really talking about is narcolepsy, which is a condition that creates a tremendous amount of sleepiness in people. And what's unfortunate about it, despite the fact that there's 2 different governing bodies that define narcolepsy and dogs, great information about it, the average individual who has narcolepsy waits 10 to 15 years to get appropriately diagnosed. And what's unfortunate about that is when you talk to them, they're 26 years old now, and when you're talking to them, they're like, oh yeah, I've been this way since middle school. I've been on 3 different antidepressants, then I get her to figure out what's going on. I got a full ride to this college, and I dropped out midway through my 2nd year of school. What's interesting is these people often make straight A's. They're very good students. They find out very quickly that they're either busy or they fall asleep. So they're involved in everything. Busy, 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 busy. There's no sitting quietly for them. Captain of this, president of that, straight A's, straight A's, straight A's. Then they immediately fail out of college. Because at some point their brain says, nothing is exciting and interesting to me as sleep is. Not your college classes, not your boyfriend, not the a cappella group you sing in, nothing. And when they deteriorate very quickly. And what's sad is when you diagnose these individuals eventually, and you do it with a sleep study, and it was called an MSLT, and we give them medications to make them feel better. What's sad is you give them these medications, you treat them, and you're like, oh my God, I've never felt like this. I've never felt awake before. Right, because your brain doesn't have a chemical in it that allows you to be awake. Right? I don't have what I need genetically to dunk a basketball. Right? It's never going to happen. They don't have what they need to wake up. It's not a matter of getting more sleep, better mattress, Tom Brady pajamas. None of that's going to help. They are missing a chemical in their brain that allows them to be awake. So it's like having a hole right here. You can eat all you want, but as the food falls out of the hole into the ground, you'll always be hungry. It doesn't matter how much you eat, because your eating is broken. Their sleep is broken. So you give them one of these medications, like, oh God, it's just, I mean, they're crying. I mean, it's amazingly emotional. I can't thank you enough. This has changed my life. You know, parents come with kids to the meeting. Oh, you've given me my daughter back. But when you talk to older people who've been diagnosed with this, they have this look on their face, and the look is, what would have my life have been if somebody had figured this out when I was in high school? I used to fall asleep in all my classes. In fact, my teacher used to make me stand at the back of the class because he got so mad at people falling asleep in math class all the time that I would just stand in the back. So nothing was done to help them or investigate them. You were punished, or you made fun of, or you were ridiculed. So I bring this up here just because I think that this is a time in our life where there's a lot going on, and these people are among us. And I think they need our help. They need a cultural sensitivity about their sleepiness, because to make fun of them, all of them have nicknames, by the way. Oh yeah, they called me Sleepy Dwarf in college. One girl said they used to call me Narcolepsy Girl in college. I'm like, did anybody ever investigate for narcolepsy? No. Because a lot of people think, oh, narcolepsy is that thing when you're walking down the street and you fall over asleep. That's not what it is. It's just an overwhelming sense of sleepiness. So I always think about the word tired. Some people mean tired to be, I'm fatigued, I have no energy. Some people use the word tired and mean I'm sleepy, I can't stay awake. And what's interesting is we don't do a good job of differentiating the two. Here's a bunch of causes of fatigue. There's a lot. I got one for literally out there. Somebody who's got no energy. But that's different from I can't stay awake. Like when you're running a race, nobody ever said to me, I got to mile marker 19 of the marathon and I just couldn't stay awake. So I just took a little nap because I couldn't keep my eyes open. No, you were fatigued, so you quit. You had no energy in your body to do it. You weren't sleeping. You were tired, fatigued. So we want to keep those things separate because the causes of that is sleepiness. If you're falling asleep in class every day, you're not getting enough sleep, well, there's something wrong with it. It's simple. Very easy. So when you ask that classmate of yours, hey, I'm worried about you. You're always falling asleep. Are you okay? How much sleep you get at night? Dude, I sleep all the time. All I do is sleep. On the weekends, that's the reason I've been coming to our group on the weekends, because I just sleep in till noon. You know, I sneak off to that place in the film projector room. Everybody in high school sneaks up to that room up there, and that's where they sleep when they have narcolepsy. So if you have a friend who goes in there every day to sleep, you know, talk to them about it, you know, and be supportive of it. We were talking about this earlier with the teachers. This is a great little test. How likely are you to fall asleep reading a book, watching television, sitting in a public place like here, passenger in a car, no chance, slight chance, 50-50 definite. You can score it up and get a number. You know, so that's a great way to figure out, are you getting good sleep? If that number is 9 or less, you're probably okay. 17, we probably need to do a little investigation there a little bit. So that first question I posed to you, how do we figure out if sleep is good or not? I think this is a really good place to start. So anyway, that's all. Happy to answer questions. Which I really like. This was the best of issues, Sports Illustrated, November of 2017. Did the best wide receiver, the best fans, the best uniform. What was the best secret weapon in sports? And they wrote an article about the work that I do with teams. And you can't see me in there. But I'm in the middle of that pack, and all these guys are, I'm not there. So that's it. Thank you very much.
I didn't. You just signed up.
I don't think we really
A sensitive
community time to get sleep. Good scheduling.
Next week we'll be going to school.
Fatigue really starts to affect
Oh, next
when
week?
they start to like
Yeah, everybody will
so fatigue that they start 5-hour naps.
Not today.
We'll start the next
You
week.
sleep well at night. So your sleep, and your measures for feeling
What?
fatigue there.
Start?
none of the two shall cross your
I know,
path.
but there's a for this week they're doing or like there are things that you can do during that period. Remember how I said how they're
You have a question?
Yes.
I'm gonna send out an email to Wednesday.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's gonna be Wednesday. Before we start.
Yep.
Sleep apnea we consider more than 4 to 5
Yeah, I just didn't know what to do about it. It's a good question.
virtually nothing. So the problem with a lot of dogs is when they see sleep apnea, they're well, it's giving you those open airways so you can collect your oxygen. Right now, you're getting plenty of oxygen because your airways are open. Theoretically, instead of sleep apnea, when they sleep, their air just collapses. So they're not able to get access to the oxygen because the air's open. So what we typically do is monitor people's apnea and try it. It's like me giving you glasses because you can't see. Now you come back and you say, I still can't see. No. And you don't feel the same. Because my guess is you know where it's so mild, it's trivial. I'm going to guess you have 70. So so you know, to me, the CPAP should always be given to a young person. Coming back to then we need to do down the pathway. If the pathway is really there, you'll have a show. And frankly, if you came back and said, Chris, I'm going to use this mild apnea, it's nothing for me, we need to do something. So there are functions that I really reluctant to talk about this because it's like the glasses aren't making you see better. I want LASIK. Wait a minute, the glasses aren't helping you. LASIK may not help either. If the glasses help, then let's consider LASIK.
No, but they're not
really helping you.
they're
So like,
okay, yeah. Those we said before. I thought it was blue light glasses, but
when you examine privacy doesn't work. It's such a
they look like glasses. They have and they provide so that you can wear them for like
but it's been 6 months. What's next is really really starts to watch things like God. So a lot of my people it's like, oh, sleep apnea is terrible. It's kind of like so we're not going to
You're not prepared for it. Yeah. I mean, I think I kind of
might be a talking
which is really just not that. I'm not getting so
Please, like,
It's a bit more neurology based.
Yeah. And that's so this like the first month to do an
And I would say, we've done the sleep apnea experiment, that's great, but I'm more concerned about some other cause or something. Yeah, you're welcome. MSLT, multiple sleep latency test. If you look up test for narcolepsy, awesome, yeah. Yeah, it is. It's really good. I'm kidding. People say, well, I can't see that, but yes, you can. Is it sort of like, oh, you can sleep, but this is
You're probably gonna drop it right
tendency. Well, I don't drop it out. In fact, I drove around and back 2 hours to pick it up, so I just can't sleep it out. You don't want it to be a tendency. There's a lot of debate about black and white. Our brains, even if we're sleeping, are actually attending to our environment. So I think the white noise machine makes sense if you snore, or there's weird sounds from the air conditioning, or there's sounds coming through the walls. Sometimes the white noise machine does a good job of creating sort of a uniform, no matter what's going on, all through the night. I think that silence is probably better. They did a real study where people had skaters who were asleep, and they would use like verbs and blues, rings, strings. They could see that even though the person was asleep, they were sorting the words. So you can't learn Spanish in your sleep, but you do sort of tend to think. So the question is, if there's white noise, what's the brain doing?